Greetings and happy Monday. Welcome back to the RAD Podcast. Another great Monday down the drain.
I know, right, man? It's been a crazy Monday, man.
Yeah, exactly. For those who don't know, again, my name's Larry Jefferson. And I'm one half of this team.
Yeah, the second half of this dynamic duo, Dantrayl Smith. Apology to our listeners about last week. I had a death in a family friend who was really close to me, and so was home for a funeral, and just man, Larry, man, it just hit hard, bro.
I
It
can
hit
imagine.
hard,
Well,
man.
of course I know, but
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, so definitely, man, everybody out there, man, make sure you're taking care of your health. My boy was 40 years old, had a heart attack, so just crazy to be in this next day and age and phase of my life, man, and not have him there. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. So definitely take care of yourself. And we talk highly about that all the time. So,
right, right.
but
But yeah,
not
man.
to
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No.
Now I was going to just say, man. So for those that don't know, we've transitioned to our second mini series, where we're talking about DEI and shackles, right? As we talk a little bit about how the new legislator across the country is kind of whether taking storm in the way that they're passing laws, really aimed at DEI efforts and roles in various businesses, nonprofits, and of course higher education. However, particularly for tonight's episode, as we kick off this new series, we're going to talk about DEI and legislative impacts um, in the work world, right? So in the business sector, how is the new legislative impacting those areas? And so super excited about today's topic, man.
Yeah. And being that we both just served in similar roles, that it's really going to impact. I'm curious as to how our panelists will share how it has impacted them in their sector. So, without further ado, Ms. Lena, would you like to start with introducing yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Dantrayl and Larry. I'm so happy to be here to talk about a passion of mine, which is diversity, equity, inclusion. I am Lena Hall, and I am Global Head for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for Viasat Incorporated, and so happy to be here to talk about how DEI has impacted corporate America based on some of the legislator issues, or should I say, trends that we are seeing from our Supreme Court. So, looking forward to the conversation and definitely looking forward to the questions.
Dr. Shirley.
All right, it's gonna be the rush of trying to find the mute button tonight. So good evening, everyone. Zach Shirley, again, to echo my co-panelist Lena. I'm grateful for Larry and my doctoral LB, Dantrayl. We made it out, man. We made it
Man,
out.
we did it. We did it.
10 years next year.
I know, right?
For having us tonight. I have the privilege of serving as the Senior Leader for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for Cambium Assessment Incorporated. We are a K through 12 curriculum and assessment organization. But prior to that, I served in higher education for 16 years. So I'm coming at this conversation from two very different angles of what, as Lena also shared, passionate work, but also I consider it heart work, because you got to have a lot of heart to do this work, because it's thankless. So glad to be here tonight.
Absolutely. Dantrayl, shoot, let's kick it off.
All right. So first question we got for you is, can you speak to different company trends that you're seeing in your workplace, or kind of seeing in conversations that you're having with some of your other colleagues or friends, just kind of around new DEI legislative laws?
Lena, if you wanted to dive in first, I don't mind.
I can dive in. Well, I will tell you, as we all know, diversity, equity, inclusion became very significant in corporate America and the workplace as of 2020. We had George Floyd, we had Breonna Taylor, we had COVID. Even in 2021, we had our Asian American population being targeted. And so it's sort of DEI became very popular, if you will, where a lot of businesses started creating D&I programs and started making it a part of their culture. Now, take a step back and I'm aging myself, but when I started in the corporate world, which is almost 20 years ago, DEI really wasn't a known topic. We had it, it was there. We talked a lot about gender equality. We talked a lot about women in the workplace, especially women having children, how they can continue to build their career even while being at home, taking care of kids and so forth. That was always the issue at hand back then. And so it's always been a topic, but now more than ever, we're starting to be more specific within DEI. We're talking about race, ethnicity, gender, abilities, veteran status, the whole nine. And so from a legislative perspective, you see now where, and it's been like this for a while, not just since 2020, but from a corporate perspective, you see where maybe if you're going out for a job application where you see the EEO statement saying that the company does not discriminate against race, creed, or anything else, right? That's standard, that's federal, you have to have that. But from a legislative perspective, especially since the Supreme Court rulings for colleges and universities, that doesn't include corporate America as of now, right? So we are still continuing to move forward with D&I initiatives. We're still continuing to enhance our employee resource groups. And so we are still continuing to make it a priority. In the news, you might see where DEI is getting hit quite a bit. And so I will tell you that's the news and that's what's being reported. But when you look at different surveys, you look at different journals and research, DEI is still a priority and it's still embedded in the fabric of many, many organizations, not as a check in the box, but more of the fact that it's just what we call the right thing to do, right? It's authentic, right? A lot of companies did do the check in the box where we had to have women. We were hiring underrepresented minorities, from an executive perspective. And a lot of companies did, they felt that because it wasn't true and authentic. It was literally that, a check in the box. But for companies who are true about making DEI part of the culture, you see that their companies are continuing to grow. And that's how we're looking at it from a corporate perspective. It helps the company grow because it really does matter. So I'll stop for a second because I know my fellow panelists, Zach, want to chime in as well. But from a corporate perspective, we're still looking at it as a priority.
Okay, go ahead, LB, because I got a follow-up question for comment for what she just talked about. But go ahead.
So a lot of what Lena shared is spot on. A couple of other things as I was taking notes on this topic and thinking about my own experience. One, transparency. You're getting a new generation of workers in corporate America from these not even just millennials and Gen Zers, but they are asking questions outright, full stop. What is your DEIB statement? Why is there no presence on the website? What do the benefits look like? If I wanted to have reproductive care based on the repeal of Roe versus Wade, are you going to pay for that? If I or my child is having gender reassignment surgery, is the company going to pay for that? So you're getting these very forward questions that, I think, and I haven't been in corporate America as long as Lena has, but I'm pretty sure those questions weren't asked. It was just like, I'm happy to have a job. Also, looking at technology adaptation, right? Like, how are we adapting technology to help our employees who may have visible or non-visible disabilities in order for them to be able to do their jobs? And especially in this remote first environment, right? that technology has to be important. And so if it's going to hinder this person doing their job, ironically enough, it's National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So we're definitely having these conversations. What is the company pouring resources into that? Are we looking at policy updates? What have we removed? I know when I joined Cambium, shortly after I joined Cambium, we removed gender binary terminology from our HR paperwork to make all of our employees feel seen, valued, and supported. Not just he, not just her, not just someone with a husband or a wife, but someone with a partner, someone with a spouse, whatever terminology you want to use. And so you're seeing a lot of these organizations understanding the fact that if I am just checking the box, somebody is going to put us in our place. It takes that one well-versed employee or employee resource group or employees interviewing, and they put that review of you up on Glassdoor, and your equity score is tanked. I mean, people read those things. And so it's very important for organizations to pay attention to the legislature, but also understand how are they going to keep up and maintain with, in a lot of ways, where higher ed has already been. Like when I look at applications, I remember applying to a number of jobs in higher ed, and you had to type in a blurb on what does diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean to you. Now you're starting to see corporate organizations employ that. So you got your EEO statement, but all right, let's see what these concepts mean to you and see if you really understand how we're weaving that into the fabric of what we're doing. So again, it's becoming for a lot of organizations second nature. What I tell people often and what I tell the groups that I work with in Cambium Assessment, we're all on a DEIB journey. Like DEIB, that's the acronym we use, but you'll hear plenty of them. We're all on a DEIB journey. And some of us have a capital D, and we're just starting out with a lowercase e. Some of us have the capital D to capital E, but we're on a lowercase I. So all of us are at different phases and spaces within this journey, but understanding the fact that as long as we continue to have this transparency and this accountability, that we're going to be able to get to where we need to get to.
I got a follow-up question for comment for both of you all, because you talked about how, I guess, in the corporate world, it's still kind of being supported a little bit in terms of pushing those initiatives to support individuals' individuality, right? But I have a question in regards to, I guess, in other realms outside of the corporate world, that may not be the case, right? So you may have people sitting at the table that feel like they still have to speak for everybody. But do you feel like maybe in the corporate world now, like I'm not talking about like, 4 or 5 years ago, but like as of today, do you feel like you can sit across from the table and you have more allies than you've had in the past to support what it is that you're really trying to do?
I feel like we've moved the needle from the 4 and 5 years. Are we there yet? No. Okay. There's still a lot of work to be done. We're still on the journey. Compared to where I started off here, I think Zach was right. I was happy to have a job. My parents told me you go to work, you do well, you go home, and that's it. Today, I feel like I can raise my hand and say, you know what, that wasn't right. And now I feel like I can have a seat, and that's what we tell, make your voice known so you can have a seat at that table. But we're not there yet. And I say we're not there yet because we still have to have the conversation. The conversation is still uncomfortable. This conversation is still a little taboo like it was, many, many years ago. Have we grown and moved the needle forward since then? Absolutely. But we're just not there yet. When you look at data, when you look at stats, when you look at, African American women or even African Americans in general in executive roles in corporate America, you still don't see a lot of them. You still see our white males dominating a lot of those roles in corporate America. And back then, we couldn't even really say this now, but it is what it is. The data shows, right? But you have to measure that. You have to measure the intentionality of what organizations and corporations are trying to do so that we can become more diverse at the executive level. And so, have we moved the needle forward? Yes. Are we there yet? No.
It, no issue, nothing to add on what Talina said, because Lena, spot on. What I will say, Dantrayl, you mentioned something about having voices at the table. I think it's also important to understand that I'll use my own identities as an example. Blackness is not monolithic, right? So while I can have conversations at the table about the experiences of Black employees, I also have to caution myself not to speak for all Black employees. And that's the same for take out Black employees and insert women, take out women and insert the 2S LGBTQIA plus population, take, whatever identity. Now, to have the conversation, yes, to Lena's point, we have moved the needle. And I do believe from my experience that I do have allies in my organization that will say, hey, I heard Zach talking about the needs of our LGBTQI plus employees. Granted, I don't identify as that, but I would like to ask this question to ex-vice president, right? And so I think people, thankfully, are kind of starting to realize, number one, what it means to be a decent human being, and understanding the fact that we all bring intersecting identities to work every single day. And just because they don't say anything about my Blackness or my maleness doesn't mean that they won't say anything about my same gender loving identity or my caretaker identity. Why is Zach always leaving in the middle of the day to go take care of his father? Well, I'm a caretaker, right? So I think that people are starting to really take away that tunnel focus that Lena was speaking to about corporate America. Because I think about my parents. My parents were baby boomers. You go to school, you get that degree, you go to work, you don't take no sick time off, you use your vacation sparingly, and you keep your nose clean, right? Whereas now I think people are widening that perspective and seeing, okay, these are all the identities that Larry has. Let's ensure all of those identities are, again, seen, valued, and supported. Because he's an employee, just like I'm an employee. We're in this together. And if it were me, I would want Larry to do the same thing.
And so I don't even want to ask the next question because I have one I feel like is better. Is there a fear of being blackballed if you do start raising your hand more?
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because
and I think that, and Lena, you can tell me if you feel the same way. I think that when they see the diversity person coming, people want to go the other way.
Right. That part.
Because we're always raising our hand. If we're not raising it, we're raising it for other people more often than we're raising it for ourselves.
Exactly. Yes.
And so let's really be honest as human beings, who wants to hear that they're doing something wrong? Who wants to hear that there's something that they need to improve upon? Well, my performance evaluation said I got 4 and 5s. So that must mean I'm doing well, but actually there are some things that you can work on. So I do think that there are instances where people do have that fear of being treated differently or blackballed or looked upon as the squeaky wheel on the car that will eventually get replaced. And so that stifles a lot of these conversations that people should be having.
Right.
Yeah, I have to totally agree with what Zach is saying. In this role, we're expected to raise our hands. We're expected that our voice have to be, heard, because that's our job. And we are doing this for other people, more than ourselves. And believe it or not, we're still the ones who's not getting promoted or not getting the same equal opportunity from a compensation or, perspective. But in this role, it's like, okay, I can't think about myself right now because I'm thinking about that other employee who is afraid to say something because they're either being discriminated against or the microaggressions are coming out towards them, but they don't want to say anything because the fear of losing their job. And that's why we are here, so we can partner with our HR, business partners, so that way we can raise that concern for them and on that behalf, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to bring different topics to the forefront so the company can actually focus on it and do something about it. We can talk all day. But what actions are we going to take after we've already talked about it and spoke about it? It's very, very, you have to have a passion for this role. You have to have a passion to help people, because you'll continue to be that person that no one wants to come see. No one wants to come see, because it's either we are trying to change, which we're trying to change the environment for the better. Yes,
Right.
we are. For those listening, we are coming in to change, but we're coming in to change for the positive. We're not coming in to change, your day to day. We're coming in so that way we could be more intentional about everyone feeling a sense of belonging, not just one person. And going back to Zach about taking the full, there's a diagram, and I have to give reference. It's called the Mercer diagram. The Mercer diagram is inclusive of many, many aspects of diversity. A lot of people when they hear diversity, equity, inclusion, they think about race, gender, or sexual orientation. But what they don't think about is education. They don't think about location. They don't think about abilities. They don't think about veteran status, age. So it's a whole realm of the differences that we bring to work every day that many people don't think about. And so I will tell you, my first role in this job is one to educate and bring awareness as to what DEI encompasses. And DEI is not just me, it's not just the executives, and it's not just HR. DEI is everyone. Everyone has to come to the table to help to understand DEI, because everyone, even if you're working for a corporation with hundreds of thousands of people, everyone is different. You can go to the same either HBCU, HSI, PWI, whatever college or university you went to, but guess what? You're still different. And we need to be able to come to work every day to show those differences, so we can be innovative and creative to helping whatever company we in with what we're trying to do at the end of the day. And if we're not innovative, we can't be our best. If we're not seen as an individual who can come to the table and our voice be heard and bring that creativity, innovativeness to work every day, because you're not accepting me for who I am, then guess what? I'm not going to be able to deliver. So we have to be thoughtful. And people talk about, for corporate, what is the bottom line? How's it going to impact the dollar? Well, if your great talent is not delivering because they're not feeling inclusive, or you're not making them valued, then they're not going to bring their best to work every day. So that way they can make the company great. So that, it's definitely important. We talk about the bottom line. That's why it's important, the bottom line.
Thank you. Thank y'all for being able to pivot with my
Sorry about that.
I want to pivot
day.
again, man, because I want to be curious.
Every day.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know, like, in terms of like new laws, legislative laws is kind of being implemented and brought up and talked about. Is there a fear within corporate America that some of the conversations and support and resources will not be there within the next 2 to 3 years? Like, what type of conversations and change are you seeing or hearing that are potentially maybe affecting? Because we're seeing it affecting higher ed, we're seeing it affecting K through 12. It's just a matter of time, right? But like, is there certain things that are out there that nobody's really talked about or shared yet?
So I will say that immediately when you had the legislation passed in Florida, in Texas, and Ohio in higher ed, immediately people were asking me, because I live in Texas. Well, does that affect you? Is that also gonna change how you all do business? And I even had employees ask me the same question. And to the point that Lena made earlier, it hasn't touched us yet. But I guarantee that, they came for higher ed, and corporate didn't say anything. And then when they come for corporate, no one was there to say anything for me. And so I think that we should be cautious and aware and prepare ourselves, because I think higher ed, you all heard, I was about to say we, that's not my word anymore. You all heard the rumblings. I ain't going back, man. You all heard the rumblings, and you were able to prepare as best as possible while also not understanding what this looks like. It will be a cautionary tale for corporate America to pay attention to our higher ed colleagues and figure out, okay, these are the struggles that they went through. These are the ways that they were able to pivot. And these are the ways that they were able to still maintain as many of these services and programs for these students, because really at the end of the day, it's about the students in higher ed, as well as the employees, but students, right, you would think. And so I think that there, for some people, they're just ignorant to the climate, and that's a scary thing because they may think that this can't touch us. But then for those of us who do this work, who are paying attention, we're like, actually, the stew is stewing in a crock pot. So we got to figure out how we're going to consume it.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's definitely there. I agree with what Zach said. But that's why I go back to my original statement that I said earlier. You know, it truly has to be authentic. It cannot be a check in the box. A check in the box is, you know, because we have to do it. Either the federal government says we have to do it, you know, legislature says we have to do it. That's a check in the box. But if you truly understand your company and you want your company to continue to grow, whether it's a legislative or federal mandate or not, you're going to have DEI in your culture, some shape, form, or fashion. One, because like I said, it's the right thing to do. But then again, you know, the data and metrics prove that a company who benefits of the companies that make DEI part of their culture truly benefit with their bottom line. They benefit from a talent perspective. They benefit from ensuring the innovativeness and creativeness is there for their company to grow. We're talking right now in 2023, and you know, companies continue to look towards the next decade to see how their companies are going to continue to sustain, whatever it may be, not just DEI, you know, from a financial perspective, if we're, you know, market. So we have to look and see where we're going to be 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And if you want your company to continue to grow and progress and be bigger than what it is now, then DEI really needs to continue to be in the base, or if I say base in the fabric of your organization. If it's a check in the box, people will see it. Going back to what Zach said with our, you know, early career millennials, or even, you know, people just looking for their next career opportunity. When they go to a website, they want to see themselves. Yeah. They're looking at, you know, board of directors, they're looking at your executives. If they don't see themselves, they're going to go to the next company. So it truly does make an impact. So to answer the question, yes, you know, of course, we're thinking about it. There is a fear that it could go away, but the fear is if the company has made it a check in the box versus truly making it part of the organization authentically.
Go ahead, Larry. You got the next one, bro. See, do we get a guest that came on and want to ask a question? I see somebody look like they turned the camera on. This is by accident.
Not by accident.
Oh, okay.
How can legal professionals advocate to work together with DEI practitioners to address challenges posed by the legislative laws attempting to dismantle DEI efforts? Or is it even possible?
I think that is possible. I think that a couple of ways. Number one is, and I really did my homework on this one because I saw this question. I said, "Oh, this is gonna be a good one right here." This that banger. One, they can use their legal expertise to help us in navigating these challenges.
Gotcha.
I am a DEIB practitioner. I do the work. I'm not a lawyer. I do not profess to know the law. I did not like higher ed and law. I love law and order. That is it.
Only SVU though.
Only SVU. Only SVU. Because I'm gonna help Olivia and stable solve the case. But I think that number one, the legal individuals, the lawyers can help us in navigating that, and then help us translate that terminology, that legalese, into something our senior leaders can understand as to why we need to pay attention to this. Another aspect in which I think that they can be very helpful is helping us with policy drafting and review. I run everything through my legal team at Cambium because, again, I am not Alexandra Cabot on Law and Order. I don't know this, but Sean Klein gets me together at Cambium Assessment every single time. And so I think that building that relationship with our legal teams are very important, and also helping them understand the purpose of our work. And then, of course, always as an educator, I'm always say education and training, and what that can look like, because as Lena said, our role is, number one, as educators. If people ask us a question about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, either we provide them the answer or we do our homework so then we can provide them the answer and also have an answer for ourselves. And so when it comes down to that legal aspect, we can partner with those legal teams to do that homework together, because I think that whether good, bad, or indifferent, if people get an email and it says from the legal team, they're going to open that thing up. And they're going to do what needs to be done. And so I think that those are just a few ways in which we can collaborate with those individuals. Again, will it be the magic wand? Will it be the end all be all? I'm not that pie in the sky to think that. However, it will be more than just doing nothing.
I ditto. I mean, everything Zach just said, literally. I partner heavily with our legal team because we help each other. They, want to know what should we be doing from a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging perspective. But then they help me from a legal perspective. Well, again, I'm not an attorney either, so I need that guidance. If there's a policy that needs to be rewritten from a corporate perspective, they help us with drafting, understanding what we can do legally. In addition, really big on policy and procedures, because there are policies and procedures that you may have to change because it's not following proper diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives that you're trying to put in place. And so there may be times where you may have to change a company's policy or whatever that may be, or change a procedure. And our legal team will help us do that the legal way. Again, when it comes to data, demographics, metrics, what can we legally share? I'm with Zach. I'm very transparent. I want to be transparent with where we are with our data. Where are we, whether it's a gender, what are we capturing data on? What are we capturing metrics on? And so I want to share that data, but sometimes depending on what it is, legal may say, no, you cannot, or you can only share this much based on, these legal ramifications. So we want to make sure that whatever it is that we do or we share, or whatever we're transparent about from a D&I perspective, we partner with our legal team and they can guide us through the right way. So that way we're not hit negatively from a legal perspective. So yeah, partnering with legal, very important, and it is a must. It is definitely a priority.
Thank you.
Hey, so, well, let me ask. We can go to the audience, Larry, before I ask my next question.
Does anybody have a question about DEI or concern? All right, go ahead, Dantrayl.
So just hypothetically, right? So what does that actual conversation alliance look like with the legal team? Like, how does that relationship is established? Like, is it just one day you just be like, you walk into the legal office and be like, this man made me effing mad and I'm about to just go off on him and shit. You know what I mean? Like, excuse my language. I'm just saying, like you just mad, right? You just go to the legal office and just like, I need to talk to somebody about this and blah, blah, blah. Like, how does that conversation and relationship kind of, start?
Do you want to go, Zachary? You want me to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I like to be proactive in my approach. I don't want to come to you with shit's on fire. I wanted to
Right.
come to you before the fire even starts. Like, let's get to know one another, one as colleagues. Let's build that rapport with one another. Let me come to this meeting with ways in which I see us being able to partner, and how you can help me understand. Like, Lena gave a great example. I had to learn this lesson jumping into corporate from higher ed, because in higher ed, if it's not FERPA protected or HIPAA protected, you can probably disseminate that information.
Right.
But I've had questions with my legal team about, well, we want to do this DEIB survey and we want to share this, and this is the purpose of it. And like, okay, the 5 points you gave us, you can share 2. And here's why. And so I've had to learn to recraft my messaging and not go in and have the expectation that I'm going to be able to get everything I want because I'm the DEIB person, because I still need to function within the parameters of the law as well. And so for me, it's very much a let's connect. Well, first of all, I'm not going into nobody's office. I'm logging on the Teams because remote first. But let's hop on a Teams meeting and just like let's have a conversation, get to know one another as human beings, because regardless of your title or your status or how long you've been with the company, we're all human and we all have a story to tell. And then let's find ways that we can collaborate together, because there may be a day when the legal team needs to ask the DEI person a question about something that's going on with their team from a DEI standpoint. And that's where that collaborative relationship can come into play.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, I partner also a lot with our HR business partners as well. So it's really like a team of us with employees, feel a certain way if something has, negatively happened to them within the workplace that's just not right. Before there was a D&I position, it would just be the HR team and possibly legal. But now you have a DEI person who can bring that people initiatives on what we need to do after the fact. So something has been done. Okay, I can bring in a perspective, but in all actuality, to actually handle that, that's where our HR team and our legal team come together. What's going to happen to prevent this again is where the DEI person come and say, okay, you know what? There's no policy to even prevent this. There's no procedure from even, preventing this from happening. Someone else can do it, and there's no consequence or repercussions going to them. So guess what, DEI team? This is our project. We have to create a policy to say, you cannot, as an employee, you cannot do X, Y, Z to any other employee. It's prohibited. It's, you cannot. Or X, Y, Z will happen. So that's why you have that team of HR professionals, legal professionals, and DEI experts to come up with policies and procedures for moving forward. Because what's to say if it happens again? And the employee who did it can always say, I didn't break any corporate laws, right to voice my concern, that whole nine. I can say what I want, speech, freedom of speech. Yeah. So we we have to
freedom of speech.
They will say freedom of speech. So it's like, okay, got it. But guess what? Now we have a procedure and a policy in place that says microaggressions is against the law, or against company policy. Might not be against the law, but company policy, right? Having a Confederate flag in your office is against company policies. So we're working together to ensure we have policies and procedures in the workplace to prevent any kind of act, whether it's discrimination or whatever it may be, to prevent anyone from being excluded, not having that sense of belonging in the workplace.
And I think Lena made an excellent distinction, because you'll have some of those employees say, "Well, I didn't break the law." You didn't. But Section H of Policy 4 says, and
Right.
so there's that
In this
differentiation
company, in
of
this
this
company.
company. Now you
Right.
may go over to Google and it ain't like that at Google, but over
Right.
here, it's like that here. You
Right.
know, because I've had many an employee tell me, "Well, it's not against the law," and you're very correct. You're totally correct. However, and that's where we have to be experts of policy and be in lockstep with legal and our PX business partners, and say, well, based off of this policy, you have violated, this piece of our policy manual. So, having that partnership again with legal PX business partners, the DEIB person, it's crucial, because you never know when something's going to lean more into an HR perspective. I don't report up to HR in my company. I report straight to the president of my company. So whenever there's an HR concern, whenever someone has been misgendered, whenever someone is looking to go through a transition process, whenever we had a conversation around digital blackface a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Let me alert my HR business partner, because there may be some employee ramifications that I'm not at liberty to either discuss or handle. And then let's loop in legal to see, okay, how can we protect the organization? And if it's a concern that an employee brings up, how can we protect that employee? Right. So it's a well-oiled machine.
Sounds good, man.
Go ahead, Larry.
I'm trying to figure out what my question was, but I kind of want to go back to. So one thing that we try to do is make sure that our guests walk out with something tangible. What would be the one, like, almost an elevator speech that you will share with our audience to say, hey, if you run into a D&I issue, here's how you would handle it. Here's how you could or should handle it.
I personally would say, know if you even have a DEI team. Be aware. Be aware. If you do not have anyone who focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, reach out. Well, that says a little something right there in today's time. Just note that. However, if you don't, reach out to your HR personnel. In addition, if you have employee resource groups, a lot of people know it as employee resource groups. Some people call them just member resource groups, different names. The point is, these are groups that are different from the perspective of different demographics within the organization. So you might have a women's ERG group. You might have a pride. We call, a lot of organizations call it LGBTQ plus pride employee resource group. You might have a veterans resource group. See if you have those type of, they're supporting groups that you can be a part of, where you can go and have those hard conversations and have that safe place to have those hard conversations. In addition, those resource groups are not just for the particular members who identify as that group, but they're also for allies. So I know we have some men who participate in our women resource groups because they're allies for gender equality or pay gap, whatever that may be. So that would be number two. If you don't have a D&I person, reach out to HR, and also find out if you have employee resource groups. Get in, if you do have those employee resource groups, get involved. Don't get involved when things start to happen and you need some help and support. Get involved so you can be that help and support. And then if something happens to you, you already have built that relationship where they're like, oh, let me see what we can do for you. Be a part of it, be active in it, lead if you can. So definitely seek those groups out. I know maybe colleges and universities, I know they definitely have those, I believe they're called maybe councils. So seek out those groups because they are very, very supportive. That's your safe haven. If you just want to vent, you don't necessarily want to take legal action or you don't want to take it up the protocol of HR, you just need to vent. You have a safe haven to vent. where people understand what you're talking about and going through, and actually can provide some guidance and advice. So that's what I would leave as lasting.
Thank you.
I would leave number one, if you do have that DEI person, understand that they may be just the first stop on many stops of helping an issue get resolved. So oftentimes I think people have this expectation that we're going to come in and we're going to flick a light switch or we're going to push a button and everything's going to be miraculously solved. Every situation has different nuances to it. If Dantrayl has a situation as a Black man and I have a situation as a Black man and it's the same situation, and we go into Lena and at two separate times and say, this is our situation, well, maybe the fact that I identify as the same gender loving man may have something to do impacting my situation. Maybe the fact that Dantrayl is taller than me, which he is, has something to do with his. So, I mean, understanding all of the nuances of a situation to help that person be able to ultimately address whatever it is your concern is. I will also definitely lean into, like Lena said, the employee resource groups, and even take it a step further and have your senior leadership empower your employee resource groups, not just to be book clubs and things like that, but actually influence policy, have conversations with, let me tell you, my ERGs, when I tell you, I think they talk to my human resources business partner more than I do, because they're like, well, what are we doing to recruit diverse talent to the organization? Because Zach is one person and you can't expect Zach to do it all. So we're going to help him do it. Or what are we going to do about paternity leave? Like, we have this maternity leave, but what about paternity? Like, they are on it. And so be ready to lean into doing the work of helping to better the organization. If you do join an employee resource group and then you do decide to lead, ask the questions, right? Like, nothing wrong with asking a question, because you'll just probably stew and be upset because you think nothing's going to change, but you haven't asked the question. Nobody else knows to ask that question, but it may be the same question that they have. So definitely get plugged in and involved. And also, I would say, understand your own unconscious biases and do your homework, right? Your DEI person, we can provide education, we can provide training, but it shouldn't stop with us. Like, you can't look at us being your repository of truth or your North Star. We can be a resource of truth. We could be a star, but that learning has to continue outside of the 3 or 4 meetings that you may have had with us, or the hour-long DEIB dialogue that I do every 4th Wednesday of the month. Like, it's not meant to feed all of your learning, but it's meant to help start your learning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we got a question, Larry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening. I'm going to ask a question, and it could be for either one of our guests. I'm just curious, with the way the workforce has changed in terms of more employees working remotely or working at home. Do you think, or have you encountered more challenges in terms of being able to resolve issues with employees not really being in-house or working in the office?
So, Tawana, and if I'm mispronouncing your name, please let me know.
You're good.
Okay. Tawana, I will say, and unfortunately, I don't like answers like these, but this is the answer that I think is best. It depends on the organization. I think it depends on the culture of the organization and how they addressed conflict prior to being fully remote versus did they have a conversation around the table and say, now that we're remote, not that we ever expect conflict, but we now have to figure out a way to address conflict. And so I think it starts with that conversation. I will say that I have not encountered that. I've been with Cambium assessment now for a little bit over 2 years. and I have dealt with some conflict. But I have not encountered that. And I never worked in office with Cambium. So when the pandemic hit, I was still working in higher ed. So I've only known Cambium to be remote. So I don't know how we handle problems in the office prior to. But I say that to say, I think that we have become more vigilant in dealing with issues and concerns, because being remote, it allows it to fester if you do not address those concerns. Whereas in the office, we probably work the next cubicle over, or we probably gonna see each other, in team meetings, and there's no camera off in an in-person meeting, right? And so I think that we have learned how to escalate concerns. We've learned how to bring in the right people when there is a concern. And we've also learned how to have conversations with employees, whether they are on the receiving end of the issue or they are the one who might have started the issue. But then also at the end of the day, we are a business and we are adults. And if an employee is not going to take that feedback of an issue that they've created, then those lead to additional conversations, right? But short answer, after all of that long answer stuff, is I think that we have dealt with it well. Now watch, something gonna happen, and I'm gonna to Tawana and be like, well, girl, listen, I thought we had a handle on it.
I do. And thank you, Tawana, for your question. And I have a sort of different approach on this one. For Zachary, I do also work remote, but however, there are times when I need to be in person. So as of now, today, I'm in the office today, traveling. This week, away from my family, because some things just needed to get taken care of in person. Same about 2 weeks ago, when I traveled, because some things were said in a training, and they said, Lena, we got to take a handle of this. I said, I'll be there next week. So some things you do have to be able to reach out and touch somebody in a nice way. And it sends a message that this is important. It's important enough for, your executive, your, DEI representative to actually come to you to have the conversation, to educate you, to bring awareness. And can some things be done remote? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm doing it. I do it. But when there's times that I need to be in an office, I need to be in the office to show and to prove the importance and to send that message that this is important. So we're going to talk about this face to face.
All right. Well, Dantrayl, the quote and close us out.
Man, I have another question though, bro. Real quickly, because I know we got to get to the quote, but real quickly, what could companies do, right? You all talked about it in your response to the first question in regards to some of the legal actions that are being implemented across America really haven't hit corporate America in the ways that it's hit other areas. But real quickly, what can companies do for those people that are going to be hearing this podcast and later and listening to assist those other areas that are being affected by the legal, stuff?
So just for my clarification, so for example, what can companies like Lena's company, my company, do to help, like, say, higher ed institutions?
Right. I probably shouldn't have asked that with 2 minutes left, but it was burning. It was burning in my mind, man. I was like, I meant to ask this question. Like, just curious to know.
I think, and this is very, high level, but just know that organizations are, once students complete their education career, whether it's through their bachelor's, master's, PhD, companies are still going to be looking for diverse talent after they get those degrees. And so when your students come to a corporation from whatever college or university they attended, that sends a message to different corporations, right? So if you have diverse students graduating from your colleges and universities that have all of this great knowledge and experience that we're eagerly trying to get, then that's actually a plus for that particular college and university. If we corporations are looking for diverse talent from different colleges, especially the career fairs that we attend, that's what we're looking for. And if you're not producing that, then we're going to go to the next college and university because we're looking for diversity. We're looking for innovativeness, and we're going to take the best. Now, and I know, Dantrayl, you shouldn't have asked this because this is I have to bring this out. Diversity does not have to be measured with great talent. Great talent is an automatic. Everybody's, what I say, specifically my company, we're going to hire the best. We're going to hire the best talent. It's not, are we going to hire diversity or the best talent? No, it doesn't work like that. Diversity is the best talent because you're bringing innovativeness from across all ways and experiences. So don't compare and contrast. We're going to hire the best regardless. Where we recruit from, that's where we're going to be diverse in. We're going to recruit talent from diverse pools. We're going to go to diverse conferences. We're going to go to diverse colleges and universities to pull in great talent. And that's how you expand your client base to ensure that whoever you're bringing in is representative of our customer base and is representative of the organization. So I'm sorry, but you brought that one up, and I had to bring that out.
Hey, Zach know how I do.
I know. My doctoral LB will pontificate as I will. So that's why they said we're gonna go ahead and let y'all have these degrees. I think everything that Lena said, obviously spot on. We recruit for culture add, not for culture fit. We recruit for culture add, not for culture fit, because the culture that you're trying to get someone to fit into could be 12 white men who are 50 and above. And therefore, looking at the state of where colleges and universities are from a DEIB perspective, my response is going to be a lot more existential coming from that world, and still having it ingrained. What I try to have conversations with my teams and my employees about often is, all right, if you have children, everybody's not a parent or a guardian, but if you have children and one day those children aspire to go to college, wouldn't you want your children to have the most diverse experience that you're trying to champion for in your organization currently? And so really indoctrinating into the folks that I work with why this is important for us to pay attention to. If you are a woman who graduated from a STEM school, help us find diverse women who've graduated from STEM schools. Instead of me getting on the internet and looking up STEM schools for women or women percentage in STEM programs, which I've done, if I already have somebody who has that real life experience, let's tap into that and let's connect those students with these employees. Because again, to Lena's point, these folks will graduate, they don't want jobs, and we got jobs. So let's help recruit those individuals, because while some state governments may be trying to eradicate or have eradicated DEIB in their institutions, there's more than one way to skin a snake. So let's find an interesting way to get those individuals in front of us, get their resumes in front of us, and again, speak to not only are we going to hire the best person, but that diversity piece coincides with that. So yeah, that's my thought.
Okay. I appreciate that. All right, Lee, I got your quote for you, bro. There? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
I didn't know you wanted me to introduce the quote.
All right. So this quote comes from Nelly Borowo. I just butchered that last name, but The quote says, diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice we make every day. As leaders, we have to put out the message that we embrace and not just tolerate diversity.
Man, that's a whole
That's a
mouthful
good one.
right there.
Right.
That's a good one.
Well, hey, appreciate you all coming on. To all our listeners, make sure you check us out next week as we talk about DEI's effects in higher education. The panelists that we have coming on definitely going to tear the floor up just like these two did. So make sure you tune in, and just appreciate you two being on the show so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us,
Thank you.
Dantrayl and Larry. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a
Had a
good one,
great time.
everybody.
Right.